You're listening to She's the Business podcast.
Have you ever experienced what we call writer's block, where you've sat down to create something and no matter how hard you try, the words are just not coming and it is so much harder and takes you so much longer than you know that it should? Well, in today's episode, we're talking about how you can shift that block, how you can unlock your creativity and literally be able to create content, create on demand whenever you want to. So stay tuned. You're going to absolutely love the conversation we have today.
Hi, I'm your host, Jessica Osborne. And over the last 25 years in marketing and business, I've helped many brands to launch, scale, and grow, with some of them becoming multi-billion-dollar companies. I'm here to inspire you to get out of your own way and create a profitable, fulfilling business while living the lifestyle you really desire without all the hustle. So I bring you She's the Business podcast, a unique blend of strategies, tactics, mindset, health, and spirituality, literally everything you need to be the successful leader of your dream business. Made by women for women, this is your weekly dose of motivation and inspiration.
So how do you get past your writer's block and be able to create content on demand, and really great content as well that's very aligned with your purpose, with your highest energy, so that people just cannot wait to get more of it? Well, joining me today to share about how you can unlock your creativity and really leverage that side of you is the beautiful Nina Worsley. She is a jazz singer, a classical composer. She went to college to learn how to be a composer. So she knows more than anyone what it's like to be told that you've got to literally create and compose on demand, and that is creating at the highest level. So she has so much experience and expertise in helping explain the whole creative process, what those blocks are, how we can shift past them, and some really simple, easy tips that you can use today so that you can find that a whole lot easier. Nina today is a creative coach. So she now works with entrepreneurs, women, helping them to unleash that creative potential, clear away their creative blocks so that you can find the whole process so much easier. You're going to love this conversation. Make sure you listen to the end, because I do ask her all about what happens if you're someone that doesn't believe you're creative, if you have grown up in a world that's not full of music or art, and maybe you just don't see yourself as a creative person and you think that you're a lost cause. Well, if that's you, we do talk all about that right towards the end of the conversation. So make sure that you stay tuned and listen in for that one. Without further ado, let me play this interview for you. With the lovely Nina Worsley, who's all the way over in Pennsylvania. Hi, Nina. So great to have you here on the podcast today.
Hi, it's great to be here.
Yeah, I'm so excited to chat with you because I don't think I've ever had a composer come on the podcast before. So I'm so curious to hear a bit about your story and how you've transitioned from the world of performing into the entrepreneurship world. So would you like to tell us a little bit about what you do now, like who you serve, your business, Cavernous Creative Coaching, which sounds really exciting. And then I'd love to hear a bit about what you did before and how you've made this change.
Yeah. So do you want me to go into my backstory first, or do you want me to start
or maybe share a bit about, just share a bit about what you do now, and then, then tell us how you got into it.
Yeah. So I'm a creativity coach. I help creatives, primarily women, to identify their creative blocks and to work through them actively and to unlock just consistency and creativity in whatever they're doing, whether you're a writer, songwriter, graphic designer, painter, whatever it is. All of our creativity stems from the same place, and I help you to access it and to take control of it.
Amazing. Right. And so how did you make this change? Like, you've had a career that is really successful as a composer and a performer. what prompted you to make this shift into coaching others and helping others to bring out their creativity?
Yeah, well, I think that it's just something that I feel so um, alive in the world of like creativity and coaching and
Mm.
composing in my like background. I had this whole long journey of learning how to sort of take control of that aspect of my life. And
Mm-hmm.
when I learned it, it changed so much. And I realized how important it is. And it just sort of solidified that I really, really want to help people to learn how to do the same thing because, again, it changed me so much.
Mm. Yeah. So tell us a bit about what that looks like, because for those of us who haven't been through this change or journey or understanding and unlocking that creativity, what does it feel like when you don't have it unlocked? Like where would your clients, or where would most of us probably, I imagine, where would we be? What does it look like when you're not fully connected into your creativity?
Yeah, it just feels like you're not fully who you are, if that makes sense. I
Mm-hmm.
grew up writing songs, and sometimes I would go write a song a day, but there would be some times when I'd go 6 months when I feel like I don't have anything to say. But it
Mm-hmm.
wasn't that I didn't have anything to say, it was that I didn't know how to express the thing that I wanted to say. And I
Mm.
think that when you have a creative block, the reason why it affects so much is because your creativity is connected to who you are in such an intrinsic way that it affects the way you communicate with people. It affects the way that you solve problems in your life. And having a creative block just sort of feels like you know what the other side looks like, but you don't know how to get there.
Mm. Okay. And so what might someone be experiencing on a daily basis, apart from just sort of feeling like it's hard? It's hard to communicate. What are they? What other signs or symptoms might you see where you're like, okay, there's clearly a creative block happening here?
Um, there is the obvious of like not being able to finish things and things like that. But then it's
Mm-hmm.
also when you have that sort of block, it manifests in the way that you view yourself because you're you start to doubt yourself when you don't feel like you have full control over who you are, and you start
Mm-hmm.
to doubt your confidence and things like that. And
Mm-hmm.
confidence is our confidence level is what affects every single thing that we do. If you see a confident person, every action that they take is that of a confident person. And you see a deeply insecure person, every action that they take is that of a deeply insecure person. You can see it, you can feel it. So
Yeah.
it looks like you're you can feel it, and the world will reflect that. Your world will reflect that if you're not fully in control of your creative energy.
Yeah. So things like where you think, wow, I'm trying to go forward, but it feels like I've got one foot on the brake and
Yeah.
I'm maybe playing small, and you kind of know that you are, but yet you don't really know how to not be doing that or how to
Yeah.
change.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, because I think, you're so right. I can really see there's such a difference between somebody who has that confidence. They're taking intentional action. They are fully in line with what they're doing, and they are happy with what they're doing. Whether or not it's going to work or not, it doesn't really matter, right? They're just like, this is what I'm doing and I'm doing it. Whereas when you have all of that doubt, the fear, you're questioning yourself constantly, like, should I be doing this? I don't know. Like, you've put one foot in, you take it out again, you overthink it, you wonder about all the things that are going on. And yeah, they are very different when you look at that, next to each other. There's a huge difference. And so it's really interesting that you're bringing this back to this creativity, aspect, because I think so many people talk about confidence and imposter syndrome, and there's a lot of things that create confidence. But it's interesting that you're bringing it back to this creativity. So I'm curious to hear a bit more of your story. Like, what happened for you when you finally unlocked this creativity and you realized, well, this is the thing that has been holding me back, or this is the difference.
Yeah.
And then tell us a bit about what it looks like now that you've unlocked it. Like, what is that other world for you?
I grew up in a very musical childhood. I
Mm-hmm.
had a big church that did praise and worship and had a huge choir and everything. So I was just immersed in music from the moment I was born, essentially. And I knew I knew music as the way that people express themselves. And so
Mm-hmm.
as I was growing up in that environment, I learned to express myself through that. But I was also going through a lot, especially when I hit my preteens, early teens. I was going through a lot. And I always had the natural inclination to express it through music. But like I said, there would be points where I wouldn't be able to express something for a really
Mm.
long time. There was, in particular, and I didn't realize it until later on, so I'll get to that in a second, but there was something that I really wanted to write a song about. And it took me 4 years to be able to put it down in the way that I felt like was me. And at the
Mm.
time, I didn't realize why it took so long, but I was just happy that I got it out. But then I started going to college as a composition major. And for those who don't know about or have never met a composer, have never met someone who's been in college for that, you have to create constantly on demand. You don't have the choice as to whether you're inspired or not because you're getting graded on it now, and you have to create. I
Mm.
had to create new things every single week, and I was graded at the end of the semester on how well I did that. So I started
Wow.
having to find real ways to literally create on demand, to make really beautiful things, but also really
Mm.
fast. So that was where I sort of started to kind of peel back the layers and sort of really break down what it is that connects me to my creative energy, because that's when I needed it the most. And then I
Mm.
realized that when you're creating things that are creation is like an extension of you. It's like what you're putting out into the world, and a little piece of you is in everything that you create. And so I realized that I had to process certain things in order to break through certain barriers. So going
Mm-hmm.
back to that song that I was writing, I realized that when I would write really beautiful songs about things that were painful to me, it was always the things that I'd already processed. And
Mm.
this one song that took me so long was because I was subconsciously hiding myself from it. And I didn't realize it at that time. So
Mm.
when I really started to create at high volumes, it's sort of just I had to take responsibility for my healing, essentially. And the other thing is that my relationship with God played a huge role, because the closer I got to God, the more I realized that we are literally a reflection of our creator. We are the created, but he made us as creative beings. So the more I acknowledge that and let him in, the more he would also help me and support me. And I felt like I wasn't um, in conflict with my purpose. I was in alignment with it. And once that
Mm-hmm.
happened, every single thing got so much easier.
Yeah. Wow. So how do you kind of, you mentioned you're connecting to that creative energy, and part of that was about being able to take responsibility for something, or having, or process something that had happened. And I think that this connection to your creative energy and being able to produce stuff on demand is, like you said, that was for you as a composer, but for people who are in a content creation type of business, that's, as well what you need to do every day. And we're not necessarily have had any training as any sort of performer or creator. You're just a person who's then wanting to help people, and suddenly now you've got to, I guess, perform every day. Maybe it's every day, or whenever you're like, right, well, I need to do the content creation. Some people say they put a day in the calendar. It's like, well, how are you going to be able to perform on that day in order to be creative enough to get that content happening? So whether you're doing it daily, whether you're doing it once a week, once a month, it doesn't matter. There's sort of like this need. Your business needs you to be able to do that in the same way that you had that challenge at university to just compose on demand. So I think that this is the real key, and what's so important is, how do you sit down? You might not be feeling it today, but you're saying there is a way that you can sort of connect to your creative energy and get into alignment so that you can allow things to flow. Because if it doesn't flow, it's going to be really hard to produce something. It's going to take a long time and not be feeling great. Is there anything that you could share that would help? Like, I'm thinking there's a couple of ways I want to take this. One of them is, you mentioned you found it easier when it was something you'd already processed. So is there some tips around when you're looking at, well, I need to create some content, okay, well, maybe I'm going to look at topics that would be really easy to produce content on? Or is there some steps that someone can take in order to really quickly shift from being in the place of having not processed it to having processed it so that they can create content on it? I'd let you take that very long question and decide which way you want to go first.
Yeah. So in the realm of making sure that you are essentially making sure you're available on the day, because that's kind of what you're asking, is like how do you become predictable, in a sense, where like that when you sit down that things are going to happen.
Yes.
My biggest like overarching advice is just generally to have to do like an audit of your values and your priorities, and sort of make sure that you're really clear on your vision for your life and for what you're creating. If you're a business owner, have a really clear idea of your business. If you're a songwriter, have a really clear idea of who you are and what you're trying to convey. Because a lot of what gets muddy is when people start to think about things too externally. Like when you're a content creator, you're thinking about, how people are can perceive this, and what's going to get the most views and everything. But if you don't start from who you are, then you're not going to reach you or them, because it starts with you. So the first step, I think, would be to audit your values and make sure that everything you're doing is in alignment with that, because otherwise there's always going to be some sort of like friction. And it's I'll say this example. I just thought of it. It's really funny. For people who are singers, when you learn how to breathe properly, and when you learn, if you're singing and your volume's not coming out properly, or you're singing through your nose or whatever like that, you learn that there's essentially you have to create a straight line from your diaphragm, from your stomach, all the way up through your mouth. And when you're nasally, or when your volume isn't correct, it's because your breath is going from your diaphragm, and it's making stops along the way. So or you're breathing from your chest or something like that. So I think about it in that way, where you have to be intentional about creating a straight line from who you are to the thing you create. And how people perceive that is another thing entirely. but it has to
Mm,
start from you.
yeah. That's such good advice, because I think when you're trying to think of what will people like the most or how will they perceive it, you're in your head and you're never going to know until you put it out there anyway.
Yeah.
So like you say, it's really not going to be your high value content. It's not going to be the thing that connects them in, because you're doing it based on the external instead of sharing something that's come from within you, which is always going to be so much more powerful, because when you share something that is so aligned with yourself, with what you're trying to be, then I think that's where you have that highest ability to connect, because you just, it's hard to say, isn't it? I think unless you've experienced it, but the energy is always so much higher. People can really feel it and
Yeah.
hear it when it is aligned to you. So that's really, really great tip, for somebody to do. And they so they can kind of, any day that you sit down, you're thinking, right, I've got to create some content today, or I've got to put something out there, to take that moment to connect in again, remind yourself of what it is that you're doing, your purpose, and have that connection to the people who you're speaking to, I think, without worrying about what they're going to think about it. It's
Yeah, and
more
I'd
coming
also
from you.
say on that note of like when you're scheduling times when you need to do content or scheduling times when you need to create, you also should make an effort to schedule time to do these things, to craft your vision and to audit
Mm,
yourself. Because if you know, just sit down one day, or you're scheduling time in advance, but you just sit down and you're just like, I have to create things, and you haven't done that work, then it's like I said, it's not going to be connected. So doing the
mm,
work in advance, so that when you sit down that
mm.
you're in alignment, is just as important.
Yeah. Do you have any tips about what you would do? Because that just prompted that thought of like, oh my goodness, you might be, I don't know, you might have been busy doing something, you're in your emails having a conversation with someone. Maybe you've even been getting the kids off to school. So your brain's been doing all of these things. And then you're like, right, now I'm going to sit down and create some content. And it's kind of really hard probably to just flick the switch and move from whatever mode you're in into the creative mode. So is there anything that you do, or recommend that you do, that is maybe like, right before you actually try to pump something out, like do this activity to help you to switch your brain into the right mode so that it's going to flow for you more easily? Do you have
Yeah.
any really cool exercises or tips that you can share?
Yeah. So I do think, it is a struggle when you have a huge, ginormous to-do list and you're running from one thing to the next. Um, and that is the issue, is that you do need to take your time. And that's what a lot of people
Mm.
don't have. I know there's a lot of times when I don't have it, but I will say that like um taking the like I will I guess, to the point of how to get back in the correct mode, I would
Mm.
just say take a journal with you and just write a short paragraph detailing your intentions for what you're about to do. So that'll give your brain the cue of like, oh, we're doing something else now, and this is what we're doing. Because when
Mm.
you're in the chaos mode, you're like, oh, I have to do this, I have to do this, and you're moving with your body, you're moving with your hands. But when you're going and creating something, you're not just in autopilot anymore. So you have
Yeah.
to remind your brain, here we are, this is what we're doing.
Yeah, I love that. And it's so simple, right? So
Yeah.
it's not like, because I think we always have that challenge of, oh, there's just not enough time and I've got so many things I need to do and I've got to sit down and get this done. And there's always this pressure that I think we just put on ourselves, like layer the pressure on. But just to take that moment and write the intention, what an amazing tip, because it literally could take, a minute at the most to do, but it's just going to help you switch off all the other things and to really center into what you're about to do, which is, yeah, so good. Like you like cueing your brain. Okay, brain, here we are. This is what we're going to do now. That's really excellent. So is there anything else that you can think of? I guess you mentioned before about when you're creating something and it's something you've already processed. Did you want to share anything else about how you can sort of, I guess, select really good topics, what you advise people to do in that place? Because I think that we could all do with avoiding that sort of creation that takes a lot of time and effort. And, that's a really perceptive insight that, hey, if you are trying to create something on a topic that maybe you haven't processed to the right level, then that's why it's feeling hard. It's why it's not coming out, because you haven't gone through that. I'd love to hear a bit more about what you mean by processing it. How do you know whether it's something you've processed or not? I'm just trying to think of the questions that people might be asking when they think about that.
Yeah. Well, whether that you've processed it, I think, when you are on the other side, which is the hard part. But when you're in the before stage, I think that the biggest thing is when you're finding something that's taking a long time, it's hard, because it's like you do have to sort of confront yourself a lot. And that's what creativity is. It's getting to the core of who you are. And so when something's stopping you from doing that, you have to pause and you have to address it. And so if you're in a situation where you're in the middle of something and all of a sudden, oh, you can't do it anymore, run out of creativity, it's gone, don't know where it went. I would say that you should really reflect on the moment that happened, and what was happening at the time, what were you thinking about at that time, and what was the topic. Because sometimes you don't realize that something isn't processed until you're already in the middle of trying to get through it. So think about what was that moment, and be really, really honest with yourself, which is the other hard part that people will always struggle with. It is just a constant circle of honesty and reflection. And I'm trying to give a good example, but I always go back to that example of the song that took me 4 years to write. But
Yeah.
I will say that it really takes, I can't say any other word other than honesty of yourself, and self-awareness of what you're going through. And if you're in a situation where it's something that's not that serious, but it's something that you just don't want to confront, it takes a lot of responsibility to say that this thing that I'm creating is bigger than my fear of confronting myself. And that's where a lot of people have the big issue, is that this thing where writer's block happens, where any sort of thing like creative block happens, you believe that the thing that you are trying not to confront is bigger than the project. And you have to shrink that belief and realize that we're all human beings and we're all doing our best. And, once you get to the other side, it's going to make sense.
Yeah. So would you say, if you've experienced that block, maybe you've started something or you sat down and you just can't get it out, that's the moment that you ask some questions, okay, is there something that I'm avoiding? Is there something that I'm, like some self-reflection questions to see whether there is a subconscious avoidance happening there?
Yeah, and it's not always something super serious. Sometimes it's simply you're worried about the way that people are going to perceive the thing that you're creating. You're worried about, again, it's the external things that are seeping into your internal process. So
Mm.
it could be something that is from your past that you have to confront, or it could just be that your confidence is weighing in this particular aspect of the
Mm-hmm.
process. Because again, we are just living life. We're going through whatever we're going through.
Yeah.
And when we're just on autopilot for a long time or whatever it may be, we don't always notice that we're making decisions based on our lack of confidence or based on our self doubt or
Mm.
based on our fear of being judged. So I would say that you should also look at who are you thinking about when you're stopping. What's the
Yeah.
picture that's creating the reason to stop?
Yes. Yeah, definitely. And then once you've kind of identified that, do you have a way that somebody could sort of shift their perspective so that they can get rid of that? I guess, even though you might identify it, it's still going to be present. You might be like, well, I've identified that I'm worried about what people are going to think, or that they're going to see me, maybe they won't think I'm an expert in this area, or maybe I'm not going to explain it right. Whatever that fear is that you've got that's kind of stopping you saying the thing. Once you've identified it, what could you say, or is there a question you can kind of present yourself that helps you to kind of shift back into that position of power and confidence?
As far as a question, well, I'll say this first. I think the two biggest things um, when you're trying to get back on track are talking to yourself. I'm a really big proponent of just saying the words and just getting out the correction. If something happens in your mind, it's not
Mm-hmm.
always, we don't control the thoughts that go into our mind, but we control the words that come out of our mouths. So I think that
Mm.
really going back and saying, no, that's not true, yeah, out loud to yourself, as stupid as
Yeah.
it may sound, is really important. And the other thing I think is really important is exposure therapy. The only way
Mm.
to because your brain and your subconscious are designed to protect you. And when they are keeping you from something, it's because they believe that that is going to protect you. Like I don't want you to get hurt, which, you have to sort of baby yourself in a way of like, I
Mm.
understand that you're trying to help me, but this is okay. I'm not going to die. So if you're in a
Yes.
situation where you're afraid of of judgment, you're afraid of the way that you're being perceived, or you're afraid that people aren't going to believe in you, you just
Mm.
have to take a huge leap and prove yourself wrong. Because 9 times out of 10, you are wrong. People
Yeah.
either are ready to support you or they don't care as much as you think they do. And
Yeah.
in a writing example, if you have writer's block and you're afraid of whatever it is, self doubt, whatever it is, just creating, I'd say, create a little bit of a detachment and write crazy things through that block, and then go back and edit it later and just prove
Mm.
to yourself that you can get beyond it. And then you're like, oh, I'm on the other side, and now let's do more work. So just the exposure of going beyond the thing that you're afraid of in the
Mm-hmm.
most controlled way, so you can prove to yourself that you're in control of it. But if you're
Mm.
gonna ask yourself a question in the moment, I would I would say that the best thing to ask in order to get your brain back on track is, what are you doing this for? And what do you believe is bigger than your purpose in this moment? So
Mm.
when I create music, I I want to help people to feel something. I want to show people the truest version of myself, and by extension I want to show them my love of God through music. And that is super important. So when I'm in a mode where I'm afraid of being perceived, I'm like, is this person who I'm afraid of bigger than my purpose? And the answer is always no.
That's so good. Yeah. Like when you put it into that perspective and then, is this bigger? Is this more important? What, if somebody doesn't like it, well, hey, you can't control what other people think or how they react. And there's probably always going to be somebody who doesn't align, but that doesn't matter, right? You're not doing it for them. There's all of the other people. So it's so good to do that. I love how you said, say it out loud to yourself. Say, well, hang on, that's not true. Or like, that doesn't matter. That one person that might criticize, they don't matter in the whole scheme of things. It's not. That's so interesting because it's funny. I do something similar with my son when he's having, a whole lot of fear, and I get him to say things out loud because I'm like, get it out of your brain. Like, let's talk about it. Let's say the positive thing that we want. And he always fights me on it, but I found that saying things out loud actually does, because your brain hears you say it, right? And like you say, you are in control of the sounds that you're making. It's not it's not running on autopilot like your subconscious, where the thoughts are just coming without you controlling them. So that's such a cool thing to think about. Yeah, say it out loud, talk to yourself. And I think you mentioned something before, and it's just a thing that I usually try to do as well, because often when you're starting something, it's like, oh, I've got this mountain to climb and this is feeling really hard, and you're at the bottom. I love to kind of go, well, what if this was already done? What if I'd already done it and it's successful? What if, like, take myself to the end and feel what it looks like there, and then look back and be like, okay, so now I'm just going to write it the way I want to, because it's already good. It's already successful. It's already done, so it's easy now. And something like that, if you can train yourself to do it, can also definitely make things feel a lot easier.
Yeah, and I think that when we're talking about people, we're talking about creativity and like people who are wanting to create new things. If you have the desire to do that in whatever avenue, then that desire is already proof that you're capable of creating something out of nothing, which we all are
Yes.
in a little in our own little way, even though, it could be whatever it is. I think that acknowledging the fact that, again, we're creative, we were created as creative beings, and that is
Mm,
part of your destiny, is acknowledging that and honoring that. Then
mm.
it does feel almost powerful of like, yes, this is what I was created to do.
Yeah, yeah. And that was something actually I wanted to ask, because I think some people like yourself, you've grown up in this really creative environment. And so you naturally believe that you're creative. You naturally have this, I am creative. It's not a hard thing for you to adopt or to tune into. But I think there are a lot of people who just don't believe they're creative. My son would be one. My daughter, complete opposite. But if I'm looking at them, they're like chalk and cheese. If you asked him if he's creative, he'd be like, no. He would be adamant that he's not. And I don't know where he gets that stimulus from, but there would be definitely a lot of adults as well. You've grown up in an environment. Maybe you've seen other people who are freely creative, and so you've just adopted this belief about yourself that you're not. And I think that you've mentioned something so important, like we're all creative beings. And so what you've shared today, Nina, so many things about how you can help to create and to not be afraid of it, and the fact that just that you are a creative being, which may be something difficult to now to start to tell yourself, especially if you spent your whole life believing that you're not creative. I think that there's been so many, like this whole conversation is really about how you can unlock that creativity within you, even if you don't think you're creative, because when you're in business, you're literally creating something. Your business has not existed before you decided to create it. Therefore, you are creative, and what you're doing in business is creating the whole time. So, that's just proof, isn't it, that anybody who's here listening right now, whether you think that you're creative or not, you actually have that ability within you. And Nina's beautifully shared so many aspects to that.
Yeah, I think that
Um,
people need to redefine what creativity looks like, because people automatically go to painter or a singer or a dancer, whatever it is. But if you've
Mm.
ever found a solution to a problem, you have creative energy. If you've ever learned a new skill, you have creative energy. If you mathematicians have creative energy, it's everywhere
Yes,
because it's an
problem
extension of
solving.
everything.
Yes, exactly. And it's like, you know, maybe look around and think in your life, well, what are the evidence that you are creative? Maybe you like to cook. Well, I don't know anybody who cooks who is not creative. You're literally creating food. You're using ingredients and you're creating something amazing. Maybe you like decorating your house, or I don't know, maybe you love the garden. There are so many things that you might even not consider to be creative, but they are. So yeah, I think that's such an important thing to kind of really land on there, and to help even just start believing that this is possible for you, because it is possible, right, for anyone. Like, you know, I love that message that you have, that it's always within you. It's just a matter of being able to unlock it and actually step into it, and it's going to give you that confidence. Do you have any final like tips or something that you wish that you'd known sooner that you'd like to share? Or maybe you wanted to say something that's like to the person who thinks that they're not creative and they're a completely lost cause. Anything that you think is a final piece?
Yeah, I think that what I would say most of all is that it is to encourage people to look more into who they are, because a lot of the times people who don't think that they're creative, and this isn't everybody, but a lot of the times there are other ways, there are other parts of their life that they're not fully showing up for. And there's,
Mm,
maybe they're, I think about you're talking about your kids. I think about a lot of teenagers today who have this sort of, it's always, I think that every generation has this phase where it's always cool to be like apathetic and like indifferent to everything, but
yeah.
that bleeds into the rest of your life. And if you're not thinking that you're creative, then it could just be that you haven't found yourself yet, and the avenue that you're meant to be
Mm,
creative in. So I think
mm.
that it's really, really important to just say, like, just say, who am I? You know?
Yeah, yeah. I love that. And like, what are you interested in? Like, imagine even just sort of being like, having that moment of like, what is your thing that really makes you feel inspired, that's exciting. And it might be something as simple as cooking. Maybe you just like to cook, and that's awesome. And I guess even thinking about that means that you're not apathetic about everything, right? You have
Yeah.
something that's like, this is your thing. That's so cool. Love that. And yeah, I'm going to hold on to that piece of advice when my kids hit their teenage years and they're deciding that, everything's rubbish in the world, and they aren't interested in anything. Hopefully we can keep them interested and creating. That's amazing, Nina. Can you let us know if people want to connect with you, learn a bit more about you, and sort of follow along? Where can we best find you?
Yeah, so best is to connect me on Instagram at composed by Nina.
Hmm.
And all my links are also there as well.
Amazing. We'll hook that up in the show notes so people can jump on over, connect with you on Instagram. And if you're listening to this episode now, why not take a screenshot of it and post it on your stories and tag us, because we both love to hear from you. If there was something that just really stood out to you today in our conversation, maybe it's going to help you to reconnect to that creative side. We would both love to hear it. So please do that. Thank you so much, Nina. It's been a real pleasure having you here on the podcast today.
Thank you
Thank you for
so
your
much. I
time.
love being here.
If you've already got a signature program but think it's not quite working for you the way that it should be, Or if you've been listening along to the last couple of episodes of me talking about signature programs and you're really interested in creating your own, maybe stepping away from that low ticket grind or selling the one-off sessions that just seems to be so exhausting and not very rewarding, then I've got something really exciting to share with you today. I'm about to kick off a 2025 update and upgrade of my Business Jam program, adding in the newest insights, lessons, and learnings to help you create that no-brainer signature program that sells itself with a really simple marketing system to grow it with premium clients without needing a big team, a big budget, or any of that hard hustle mentality. Now, I've decided to run a once-off live cohort as I roll out this new content, and it's going to be starting this month in May. This will be a small, intimate group of just 10 women who want to work with me on a really personal, intimate level through this new content as it rolls out and get extra coaching and support before I open it up to the broader public as this new and refreshed program. So it's a very limited opportunity and a first come, first served basis because there are only 10 spots. I'm not opening this up any broader than that. We're starting this month, just a couple of weeks time from now. So if you want to know more and get a spot for yourself, perhaps if it is going to be the right fit for you, then what you need to do right now is go and put your name on the Business Jam priority list. I'll be in touch as soon as possible with more details and give you the information that you need to see whether it's a good fit for you and to take that spot if you wish to. So head to jessicaosborne.com/businessjam to put your name down on the priority list right now. So excited. This is going to be a really, really fun experience. And if you're new to me, if you haven't been listening along for years on the podcast, this is not a brand new program. This is an upgrade and an update of my existing Business Jam program that I've been running for almost 5 years now. There have been multiple people come through this program, develop their own signature program, fill it before they've even really got their proper marketing system in place. It's amazing just how quickly change really can happen. So I'm doing this update. It's going to be amazing refresh of that content with a 2025 slant on it, incorporating all those newer, deeper learnings and insights that I've developed over the last time of me coaching these people through, and also my own experiences as well. So you're going to be getting the absolute best of what I have to offer in this new update. So if you want to join me for it, pop your name on the priority list right now. I'll get you the details and hopefully you might take one of those 10 spots to work with me live on it. I can't wait for this. It's just going to be so much fun. So come on and join us before it's too late.